Hello and welcome to Newcastle City Council's virtual guide to property licensing compliance. My name is John Guthrie and I am one of the Environmental Health Officers in Newcastle City Council. With me today is Emma Knowles of the Private Rented Service Newcastle. Most of you will know that the City Council have introduced new licensing schemes that cover all houses in multiple occupation, or HMOs as they are known in the city, and all other private rented accommodation in certain areas of the city. These new schemes have generated a lot of questions from landlords and agents, and the purpose of this guide is to answer these questions. However, we are well aware that this is a very different way of working and that you may have more questions at the end. We would welcome anyone who still needs to know more to contact us, and our contact details will be provided at the end of the slides. I will be looking at the different types of property license in Newcastle, how to get one if you need one, what you need to do to the property, and then where you can find out more information. So, types of license. The first type of licensing that you should know about is selective licensing. This type of license only applies to certain designated areas, and a list of streets and areas covered by selective licensing can be found from the link at the end of this. Selective licensing applies to all domestic rented properties unless the tenancy is given by a registered social landlord or the property is occupied by a member of the landlord's family. However, if the property is an HMO, it does not require to have a selective license but will need an HMO license, and more on HMOs later. So, where are the areas for selective licensing? These are the links to the selective licensing areas, and by going to them you can find a list of all of the streets in those particular licensing areas. Generally, the new schemes cover the Cowgate area, the Heaton and part of Sandyford areas, the area around Swinley Gardens and the neighbouring streets, Scotswood Village, the West End Terraces, Fenham and Wingrove. The other type of licensing you should know about is HMO licensing. This applies to the whole city and applies to all HMOs regardless of how big they are. If you have an HMO in a selective licensing area, then you will need an HMO license, not a selective license. You will only ever need one license for one property.
John, can I just jump in there?
Yeah.
Can you explain to me what is a HMO?
Okay. So we've just got the next slide. Yeah. So an HMO basically is a building or a part of a building that's occupied by at least 3 people who do not form a single household as their only or main residence, and that is the only use of that building. In addition, rents must be payable and at least some, if not all, of the amenities must be shared.
Thank you, that's helpful. Can you provide a little bit more clarity on what is a household?
Yeah. So basically a household, in essence, is one family or an individual. So a person living on their own is one household, and a family group of related people, and that includes parents, grandparents, children, grandchildren, uncles, aunts, nephews, nieces and cousins, is also one household. So if you're not related to another person, then you are from another household. So what type of license do you actually need? A selective license will usually be needed if the property is in a selective license area and is occupied by a family, one person or 2 unrelated persons. Whereas an HMO license will be needed under the HMO additional licensing scheme if the property is occupied by 3 or 4 persons in 2 or more households or families. And an HMO license will also be needed under the HMO mandatory licensing scheme if the property is occupied by 5 or more persons in 2 or more households or families.
So if a landlord thinks they need a license, what should they do next?
Okay. If you think you need a license of any sort, be it selective or HMO, you must make an application on the City Council's website on that link there, which is https://newcastle.metastreet.co.uk. Upload the required documents or safety certificates. They're listed on the application form and they can be uploaded at the time or sent by email at a later date to allow the landlords to engage contractors. The first part of the fee will then be taken. The second part will only become due when the licence is actually granted. Payment of the first part of the fee allows the application to be submitted.
If a landlord's worried about being able to afford the fee and they're thinking of selling a property, can they choose to do that?
You can sell up, although obviously it's not the intention of the council to force people to sell. What you would have to do would be to apply for a temporary exemption licence, a temporary exemption from licensing, and then serve notice to quit on the tenants. You must not re-let the property without getting a licence for it first, and if it's already vacant, then you do not need a licence, but you must not re-let it.
If a landlord lives abroad, can they still apply for a licence in their name?
Short answer to that is no, unfortunately. You'll have to have a licence granted, but the licence holder must live in the UK. You'll have to find somebody, or the landlord would have to find someone, usually a managing agent, to agree to be actually being the licence holder.
What would happen if a landlord has a property in an area covered by selective licence, but they change the types of tenants? Sometimes they let to families and sometimes they let to sharers. What should they do then?
If you think you might need an HMO licence whilst the schemes are actually in force, then my best advice would be to apply for an HMO licence now by specifying the maximum number of people and households that could live in the property on the actual application. That way you're covered in that if you rent to a family, you're still covered by your HMO licence.
Thank you, that's clear. Can I ask next, what documents should a landlord have available when they're making a property application licence?
Okay. Ideally, all landlords should have in place a satisfactory gas safety certificate. That must be no more than 12 months old. A satisfactory electrical safety certificate that must be no more than 5 years old. The fire alarm installation certificate or evidence that the fire alarm installation has been maintained since that installation. A plan of the premises and a satisfactory energy performance certificate showing the energy efficiency rating of E or above and be no more than 10 years old.
Thank you. Landlords often ask about the management statement. What are they expected to provide as part of their management statement?
Very simply, a management statement is just a written statement explaining how the landlord's actually going to manage the property. It should cover various things, and they're on the next slide, which we're going to have a look at now. Okay, so we're looking at details of when inspections to identify if repairs or maintenance are needed, when they're going to be carried out, any planned maintenance programs that the landlords may have in place, any measures to prevent or reduce or deal with antisocial behaviour by persons actually occupying or visiting the property, the enforcement of the tenancy agreement when appropriate, how tenants report any defects, including emergencies and any tenancy issues, providing instructions to tenants and any employees which detail action to be taken in the event of a fire, including the means of escape. You must inform your tenants of their duties and responsibilities, and we require written information that's provided to the tenants on the arrangements for the storage and disposal of waste. As far as I know, the private rented service can give further information on that. Is that right, Emma?
Yes, that is right. We've prepared a guidance document for landlords on preparing the management statement. It gives prompts and ideas about what information you need to provide in that statement, and that's available to download free as part of our landlord toolkit. In addition, the landlord toolkit has a number of useful documents, including tenancy agreements, rent schedules, tenants reference forms, as well as templates that you can give to tenants that will provide information about things like reporting antisocial behaviour, reporting repairs and disposing of rubbish. They're all available to download free from our website, and we'll give you the contact details at the end of this presentation.
Thank you.
Landlords know that they need to provide information about fire precautions in the property, but John, can you explain what it is that they need to provide?
Yeah, it's important to remember there's no real cover-all answer to that question, because each case and each property is different. Having said that, any fire precautions must be fitted with the overriding consideration being the safety of the occupants. And we do that by having a system of interlinked smoke and heat detectors to alert the occupants of a fire, and fire doors to contain the fire to allow the occupants to escape. For selective licensing, the property will always need a heat detector in the kitchen and smoke detection on each level, usually in the passageway. And for the higher risk HMOs, the detection system is correspondingly increased. So in addition to the heat detector in the kitchen and smoke detection on each level, all the communal living rooms will need smoke detectors fitted. And if the HMO has 3 stories or more, all of the bedrooms will need smoke detectors fitted in them as well. As far as smoke detectors are concerned, all the detectors must be wired into the mains, have battery backup and be interlinked to one another. That interlinking can be by wireless or wired connections, but they must be interlinked.
Thanks, John, that's helpful. Can I ask, what about fire doors?
Okay, again, fire doors in selective licensing will need to be fitted to the kitchen, but only if the kitchen is directly off the passageway or the means of escape. So if you come in through the front door along the passageway and you can then open a door directly into the kitchen, that door will need to be a fire door. If you're going along the passageway and then through the lounge to get to the kitchen, then the kitchen door will not be required to be a fire door. In addition, any basement where there are gas or electric meters or combustible material being stored would need a fire door, and the property entrance door if the door is off a communal hallway. So for example, in a house converted into flats, you would need a fire door on each flat entrance door. The requirement again for fire doors in HMOs is greater because of the higher risk, and in HMOs you'll need a fire door on the kitchen in all cases, and again basement doors and flat entrance doors as per selective licensing will be required to be fire doors. If the HMO is a 3-story or above, then in addition to the fire doors on the kitchens, you'll need fire doors on all living rooms and bedrooms. If the HMO has 3 floors or more, then in addition to the fire doors on the kitchens, you'll also need fire doors on all living rooms and all bedrooms. And in the same way, basement doors, cupboard doors, flat entrance doors, and other rooms like bathrooms may also need to have fire doors fitted if they've got gas burning appliances within that particular room. If there's any doubt, give us a shout and we should be able to help with the actual location of the fire doors.
That was really helpful, John. So where can landlords get more information?
Okay, on the City Council web pages, there's a whole lot of information on there. The links to those particular pages are on the screen now. There's the Landlord's Guide to Compliance, which is a regularly updated information guidance on everything to do with licensing, fire doors, smoke detection, and all of the amenities that need to be provided. There's also a link to the page there that deals with the fees and charges. And if any specific questions have been raised, they can be sent direct to the property licensing at newcastle.gov.uk inbox. And as you can see, there's also links to additional videos looking at property management, which is Emma's field of expertise.
Thank you, John. That was really useful. Well, we hope you found the video useful, and I hope you take the time to look at our other 2 videos that John's mentioned there. Thank you.
Thank you.